What's up, everyone? Blake Sloan here. My great friend, Jay Kinder, who's been a great friend for me for years, also a mentor for a very long time to me, has had a massive impact on my life. And just want to share something with our team and everybody else. One of the most impactful business stories that Jay Kinder's ever shared with me. It changed my life, changed the way I look at business. And I can still tell the name Shannon Brown like 10 years later. People in my office still know about the name Shannon Brown 10 years later. And so I text Jay the other day. I'm like, dude, I got to get you on and see if we can just share this story publicly so you can have it, so I can have it. And you used to have this awesome video on YouTube like years ago. I used to share with my team all the time. And I think like you cleaned up your channel or something. But yeah,
Right.
man, if you would just, and Jace obviously huge in the business. Everybody knows Jay Kinder, right? What is it, the largest organization at EXP or one of the
Yeah, it's
largest?
one of the it will be the largest, but it's
Yep.
growing. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like number two cold banker agent in the world, massive coach. Like I said, had a massive impact on my life. And when I first built a team in the business, I'd call him and text him all hours of the night, and he'd help me out, man. So I appreciate you. But
Yeah,
one of the
man.
most impactful things you ever shared was the holy grail of real estate, which we kind of talked about with lifetime value and getting customers to come back and repeat business. You were the first person to teach me about raving fans and creating that. And I think one of the best examples I still to this day talk about is the Shannon Brown story.
Yeah.
And if you would just kind of like share everybody the Shannon Brown
Yeah,
story
man. And
and
so I got to share how it came about because it was fascinating how because I didn't see it. Like I did not understand this side of the business was like you get referrals, people refer you all the time and you think, "Well, yeah, I get referrals all the time." So I must be doing something right. But I'll never forget it was and we were big into marketing back then. So like we knew how to generate leads. So like that it was getting customers. Once you solve getting customers as a problem, you kind of stop thinking about that first transaction actually only represents, I believe, 3% of the lifetime value of that client if you make a raving fan of your client, which goes back to Hug Your Customer and that book and Jack Mitchell, rest in peace. But that this big aha moment came from actually getting marketed to. I got marketed to by Jay Abraham to come to an event. And I remember John Kitchens came in my office one day, and Kitchens is one of those guys that's reading books faster than you can read them. And so, he's like, "Get you some of this," and he gives me an interview with Jay Abraham and Tony Robbins, and that came with the sales. It came with the actual Tony Robbins sales techniques, whatever that course was that Tony Robbins did, and it was a
yeah.
bonus. It was a bonus CD with an interview with Jay Abraham. And I was listening to it. I was driving back and forth from Lawton, Oklahoma to Dallas. And I listened to that and I was like, he just blew my mind. And so I ended up somehow, I probably opted into something. I don't even remember what it was. And I got a call from Jay Abraham, and this is a long time ago. So like this automation was fascinating at the time. But
Yeah.
I get a phone call from Jay Abraham, and he's like, "This is Jay Abraham. I owe you every opportunity to get you to come to our event." Blah 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 blah. So I go into Kitchen's office, and I'm like, "Kitchens, buy these tickets. They were $5,000 a piece." And so we're going to Anaheim. So we get to this event. We're there day one. I'm super excited because everything, like Jay Abraham just blew my mind. He opened up so many doors that I had never even thought to look through in terms of how to
Right.
build the business. And the first thing he did. Now I'm in a room with everybody in that room. There's not a real estate agent. This is all different industries, all different business types, and things of that nature. And he's like, "How many of you have ever gotten a referral? Raise your hand." Everybody raises their hand. He's like, "How many of you have a system for getting referrals?" Most people's hands go down. They're like, "Well, how many have more than one system? More than two systems? More than three systems?" One guy just, he'd been there 10 times probably. He knew the answer to
Yeah.
that. And so, he goes on to explain his 93 different referral systems and all this stuff. And, my mind's just racing, right? But one of the exercises he had me do, and this is how I thought about Shannon Brown, and I would say the self discovery of this is very valuable. So if you can think of somebody in your life that you are a raving fan of, that you do business with, that you tell people about, think about why you do it. Right? Go back to what was your experience like? Why did you become a raving fan of what was the experience like that made you such a raving fan? And think about that. Really, truly think about it. And he had us do that exercise, and I was like, man, there was two people. Eddie Hamra, who was the guy that sold suits. He had his own little suit shop. Nicest guy ever. He was in all the little civic organizations I was a part of. But when you came in the
Right.
shop, he was super nice. Knows you by name. Talks you up. And I was thinking about how he made me feel. Like I like Eddie Hammer, And so I was like, well, that's because of the way he made me feel. Nothing really about buying a suit. I couldn't think of anything that really made me a raving fan other than he did make me feel special when I went in the store.
Right.
And the second one was Shannon Brown. And I was like, man, I think I've referred him 13 people. I was like, why am I? And I just remembered going to dinner with Amber. We had gone to, this is a nice steakhouse in Lawton, but Outback Steakhouse. And
Yeah, I know that, right?
I was standing by the bar, and there was, they got this little wooden thing right behind you. It's not very much room there, and we're standing there. It's packed, and the people behind me are talking about buying a Hummer. And this was in 2003. I probably the first year they came out. I had just gotten them
Right.
from
Yeah.
Shannon Brown. And so I literally go around the table and I start talking to this guy, pull out my phone, give him Shannon Brown's phone number. I'm like, you got to call this dude, Shannon. He'll take care of you. He's awesome. You're going to love him. And I'm thinking back on all this story, right? Like this had happened
Right.
years earlier. And I'm like, what? Who does that? Like, that's kind of crazy. Like, I literally was a raving fan of Shannon Brown. And so I was thinking through the process of like, well, what does Shannon Brown do that made me jump over a table and try to talk to some stranger and tell him to call him, right? Like that was not
Right.
normal behavior. And so I went, and I thought through the process, and I remember going to the dealership, stayed there. It took forever. I didn't leave there till 9:30 at night. I remember I had to talk to three different people, a finance person, somebody selling me Gap, somebody selling me all this stuff. I was excited about the vehicle. Process wasn't that great. Like there wasn't anything special about it. But what he did after the sale was where the magic was. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is where the gold is in the story. And so I bought the vehicle out the door, drive home. I'm not thinking anything about any of
And
this. I'm just
I
go
remember
ahead.
you saying too, like the experience wasn't great. Just like you had
Yeah,
mentioned, it was just average, took a long time.
probably
And
below
you get
average. If I was to have gotten a survey that at that time, I wouldn't have said anything bad about Shannon because he was great. He was the top. I remember I was sitting in
I
his
was about to
office.
say,
Sorry, he had a
you,
surfboard, and it was signed, or it was like some special surfboard. But the top salesperson in the whole region got this award, and he was telling me, "Yeah, I got the award for the top salesperson in the whole region." I was like, "That's cool." It was like weird in a Oklahoma City in a in a salesperson's office, but
yeah,
but I remembered seeing that, and he was a cool dude, man. He's just likable, nothing special about his personality, just a nice guy. But again, I would have probably said 3-star review, maybe if somebody would have forced me to give a review. Just because I was there, I felt like way too long. It was just like any other experience I've ever bought a vehicle. It wasn't anything special, good or bad. What do you think? Any other questions
no,
or thoughts?
so I think it's important to frame it up like obviously who's Shannon Brown. We talked this story, and like I said, my office knows who Shannon Brown is, and he's
Right.
what the number one like Hummer dealer
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
in like
For all of GM in the Oklahoma Texas region, so he's in the top in the country, I'm sure, for GM at this point. Which
and to frame it, he what almost all his business is referral. We
yeah,
don't really know that yet, but I think to
no,
kind of set this the frame, like this dude is like the guy, ultimate guy in that business. Absolute crushes it. Doesn't take
kills
ups.
everybody,
Doesn't have
like
people. Yeah,
outselling
like
everybody. Yeah, like running circles around everybody and doing it
yep.
all by referral. And again, I know none of this at the time, and I interviewed him later because like the aha that I got was this wasn't a company. It wasn't a company mandated process that happened. It was just what Shannon Brown knew worked, and so
Right.
he probably had kind of self discovered that this is a good practice. And it's super simple. Like this is the easiest thing in the world for anybody to implement. Like easy, easy, easy. No time, no money, easy to implement. And
Yep.
so he called. So the first day, and I had gone. Again, I'm thinking back through this while I'm at this J Abraham event with 100,000 pages of notes on day one, and this one really stood out to me and the experience and what he had done. Where he called me the next day, and so I get a phone call. He's not. It was an 800 number, I think, is where it came from, or it may have been a 405 number. I didn't even think about who it might have been. Answered the phone. He's like, "Hey, Jake Kenders, Shannon Brown, Bob Moorhummer, how you doing?" I was like, I'm like, what did I forget to sign? I thought I was gonna have to drive up there and sign something else or something. He's like, "Hey man, I just wanted to check in, make sure everything you got home okay last night. You didn't have any, any problems or have any questions, while you're driving or anything." And I was like, "No man, everything's good, man. I appreciate it." He's like, "That's all I wanted." I was like, "Okay, cool." Hang up the phone, didn't think nothing of it, whatever. A week goes by, phone rings again, not thinking about it. It's a 405 number, have no idea who it is. Answer it. He's like, "Hey, Jake Kenders, Shannon Brown, Bob Moorhummer, how you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good, man. How are you?" He said, "Man, when you were first this call, he asked me. He's like, So how's it going in real estate? I know I know that how do the kids liking the TVs? Have you shown any properties? Do people like the Hummer because it was new and all that kind of stuff? But he's
Right.
personalizing the conversation around who I am and what I do. And so yeah, I'm like, yeah. He's like, you have any questions? And at the time, I had tried to off road. He asked me if I'd been off road. I said, actually, yeah. And how do you lock the differential? Because I couldn't figure it out. And so he
Right.
walked me through it real quick, and I was like, "All right, cool, thanks. I'll do that next time, whatever it was." And so helpful. I did have a question, so that was valuable or whatever. But we talked, and he said, "Oh, one more thing." He's like, when you were in here, you had talked about buying some aftermarket stuff for the vehicle. I just want you to know, don't go in there, to the off road accessory shop before you talk to me. If you come in, talk to me first. I can
Yeah.
get you a discount on anything that you're buying. I was like, okay, cool. Appreciate it, man. Thanks, Shannon. Save name and phone, right? And
Yeah.
so at that point, I saved his number in my phone. Another week goes by. He calls and checks in again. Hey, Jay Kinder, Shannon Brown, Bob Moore Hummer. I'm like, what's up, Shannon? Now we're like homeboys, right? And
Yeah.
so far, he's invested a total of like 35 seconds in this relationship after the sale. But going back to the how do we apply this to real estate? How often do we get that check and we don't even check in? Like, think of all the valuable things that we could offer to help people with what they're doing in their house. That first night in the house, and what
Yeah.
things they're going to be doing as they're moving in, or things they discover that that could go wrong or whatever. Great
One of the key
opportunity.
things, I was gonna say, one of the key things I remember from this story from like 10 years ago was how on the third call, you guys were like bros. And then at
Yeah,
that point, you're answering the phone by name
yeah, yeah.
just because of that, multiple follow up after the
Yeah,
sale. It's like you said,
yeah, by the third call, second call, he offered me something of value. I saved his number in my phone. He went from being, I've never remembered a salesperson's name that's ever sold me a vehicle, to I know this guy by name. And so, like,
yeah,
when you really think about any vehicle you've ever bought, who sold it to you, I don't know a single salesperson in any dealership that I ever knew their name long time, anytime after the sale for the most part. And so that was fascinating, right? And the third, so that third call, yeah, I was like, "What's up, Shannon?" And I don't even remember what he asked me on the third call. Was it, he was just again checking in, making sure I didn't need anything. But it was, now we're already, in my mind, we're already boys. He asked me if he could help with anything, I'm sure. And then the fourth call came a week later, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're going to get a survey." And I'm like, "Oh, I got you, dog." Like, everybody gets that phone call. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And so I filled out the survey, 5-star review. Yeah, and that's probably, I'm sure he's probably gotten a lot of 5-star reviews. But where the magic I think was is once I had now connected with him as like, this is my guy, right? Now, and I had referred him 13 people that bought vehicles from him, and I just known that because he had told me. And so
right.
I became a raving fan because he simply followed up after the sale 3 times with no intention other than to add more value when the sale was already complete. And
Yep.
that stuck with me, right? And I was like, in my mind, I'm at Jay Abraham. I'm thinking about this whole story, and as I'm putting it all together, I'm like, I don't think I've ever called anybody after the sale, right? Like, I just wasn't. It wasn't a part of.
Yeah.
I didn't get it, right? I didn't understand. I made raving fans and made people happy and stuff like that, but I was missing an opportunity that was way too easy. And so
Right.
that's the moral of this story is like, to create a raving fan, someone that will stop people in the streets and tell them to do business with you. It doesn't take a it doesn't even have to be a great real estate transaction, as we
Yeah.
could see in this story. You just have to follow up with intention of adding value and really try to help people even after the sale. And so we adopted that in the business, along with a few other things we learned from Jay Abraham. And I went from 20, I had never even really tracked how much of my business was by referral at the time. It was 22%. And then I bumped that to 48% the next year by referral. And so huge, more than doubling of referral business by being intentional about having systems in place. And so yeah, it was a huge aha, right? Like, that's just a crazy story of how human behavior is when you think about what you don't have to go the extra mile, you just got to go a little bit extra, and you become completely different than anyone that's ever sold me a vehicle ever.
It's funny you say that too, because I bought multiple, six figure, $100,000 plus cars.
Right?
No one's ever called me afterwards, like
Right.
at all. And I even went back to the same dealership, bought another car, another Escalade from a different sales guy, just because the other guy didn't call me. Like I
Right.
was, and maybe because I know how it works.
Right.
But I will tell you this, and that this is something that I think that really, I've talked to my team about this for years, try to push it. The number one, you nailed it when you said about the follow up afterwards, is I think our agents, people are scared to call afterwards because they're worried something's wrong with the house or there's an issue that something did flood or, there. And then, but what it is, if you make that call, it gives you the opportunity to fix it and then
Yep.
connect them with somebody who can help fix it. And if not, you're
Yep.
able to make it right. But one of the biggest things I hear from our agents, like, I'm scared to call them, which is crazy. I think 24 hours, next day, hey, how's it going? Did you guys get it? Whatever it is. And at the minimum, week one, week two, week three, because you got to
Yep.
get those three impressions. But like we just had even this morning, we had a guy that they reached out to a lead that came in. He basically said he had signed with one of our agents and he doesn't even know the agent's name. Like it's
Yep.
just how humans are, but
Right.
you have to have that. But it's like you said, if you can do three things, and one of the biggest things I think you helped teach me, one of our other mentors that we had, Harold back in the day, was just like having the hug fields and knowing personal relevance and having professional relevance. And you have to have both of those things to make it work. So are you there? Did I lose you?
Yeah. No, it froze for a second. You said
Yeah.
one of the biggest things. Then
It said one of the biggest things I learned
it's me.
was just having the hug fields and knowing about your customer and having personal relevance. Like you said, hey, Al, you
Right.
showed me houses yet. So he linked that up to you personally, which allows people to understand, hey, he actually cares about me, and then took time to remember the detail. And then at that point, through the law of reciprocity, now they feel obligated to send you a referral because man, this guy cares in a world that people don't actually care and take time to show they care. And
Yeah.
so what's been your experience with that and kind of seeing that part?
Yeah, so yeah, the no question, that the phone call where he asked me about my kids, that was personal. He asked me if I'd shown any property in it. That let me know that he knew who I was. There was probably a little ego stroke there a little bit that he paid
Yeah.
attention. That those are little things of influence, and going back on the laws of reciprocity, the book of influence, Robert Cialdini, all of those little things, he's checking these little boxes of making me feel special. I mean, it didn't take much, right? And I'm I probably don't I don't become a raving fan easily, but I feel like that was a pretty easy thing for him to accomplish. And once you kind of have this awareness, right? You're like, everyone else sucks at this. Like, this is the
Yeah.
easy thing to do, and nobody does it. And so it's just actually, I think we get so caught up in trying to get to the next sale because, man, thank God that one's done. That we don't take the time to build that, deepen that relationship. But man, for years I've referred him until the crazy thing about it, and this was probably not a good strategic move on his part because most people don't do it, but he ended up getting recruited away to Lexus, which most people that bought GM probably don't buy Lexuses, but they maybe
Right.
if he's wise or whatever. But strategically, I don't know if that was the right move for him because he was killing it there for years. And I bought multiple vehicles, referred multiple people to him. If I have a car question to this day, and I'll still call Shannon Brown, and he'll tell
Yeah.
me who to talk to in Dallas. And so like
I mean,
it's yeah.
I was gonna say just the impact. I mean, I'm still talking about his name 10 years later. Obviously, it's because you have a big influence on me, but just him talk about the way that compounds, and then obviously the ripple effects of just doing the thing. And obviously, the key part there was his business. He crushed it, made lots and lots of money without having to deal with ups and people who were coming on the lot. He did in the beginning, but he had enough sense in the back end to just use his CRM to have some notes in there, to have some deeds. Like you said, not he was just that smart or that good. He just had a system in place
Yep.
to log that information, put the name in there, he's got kids, sells real estate. Obviously, you're a pretty memorable dude, but at the same time, I'm sure he did that with lots of
Sure.
people, which allowed him to
Yep.
scale that and create a lot more things. Anything else you can think of that are missing? That anything that you've seen in your career just about like systems and processes, or what holds agents back or people back from
Yeah. I
taking
mean,
action?
it really truly is about genuinely caring about people. I felt like whether he was just making a follow-up call or not, it felt like to me he was trying to help me with what he thought I was trying to do with the extra stuff. I did talk about that to him. He wasn't just making that up. It felt like he was actually trying to help me. And I think if you gather enough of that information on the front end of, hey, are you going to be doing anything to the property, holding that opportunity to give a referral to them for after the sale is probably strategically a really smart thing to do because now you've got you're not giving everything away all before, now you're doing it after the sale. it raises the bar of the level of service that you provide. And that's what we have in this industry is if we do a great job, if we do a good job, people might remember us, they might not. They might come back to us, they may not. They're probably not going to refer us. They're not going to stand in Outback Steakhouse and start telling people you got to call. They got to call you. And so it's going above and beyond in a way of after the service after the sale. And I think in real estate, huge opportunity. Probably most people don't do it. It's super cool that you're teaching that, and showing this to your team and your family, because I think this is, the one person, that refers you a person a year. This is the lifetime connection program or raving fan system. One person in your database that sends you a referral every year, repeats every 7 years, is worth 20. If you have 100 people in your database, it's worth $20 million, versus if they're not raving fans, that's worth $1 million. So you got a $1 million business, or you could have a $20 million business. Everybody would much rather have a referral than somebody that you got to go chase down and find. And so this to me is foundationally the most important thing you can do in your business.
Yeah, and that's the last part I was going to end with. And you're one to help, teach me this and certain things, along with, Harold back in the day, where
HOA.
most people, yeah, most people don't actually do the math on what the lifetime value is. And I think the minute that somebody actually does the math on what the value is when everything changed, right?
Yeah.
We're back then, we had the spreadsheets and all this stuff
Yeah.
that would show it. But like, even in like a mid market, like 350,000,
Yep.
right? Like you said, if you get one referral a year, they say average lifetime value between 24 and 26 times. They got the repeat purchase every 7 years, right? And one referral a year for 20 years. Sometimes you can sell them an investment property. I think there's like a model
Yeah,
that
there
shows
was
this
one.
too. But
Yep.
yeah, so I kind of went like, our 24 times initial value. You got the initial transaction, 7, 14, 21. So there's 4 plus 20 referrals over 20 years, which is 1 out of 4 people they know a year. So it's not too much to ask for. But
Right.
now that same client's worth $252,000, right? Which is about 10,500 a year per client. So that client, if done right, is worth $1,000 a month if you just follow up with them and
Right.
just do basic phone calls once a quarter. Hey, check in. How's Johnny's soccer team? Whatever it is. But it's like you said, everything changes once you get to 100 clients who send one referral a year. That's everything, right? And
Yeah.
so it's
You
like you
think
said, you
about
take that.
your first 100 transactions in this business. That in the beginning you're learning a lot, and then as you start having more deals, like your business can grow organically forever if you do this right. And you're right. It never became a focus. I was like, it's too easy to go get a new one but I didn't understand the math behind it. And
Yeah, then
we
you
didn't
start getting.
track. Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, the tracking was, I wasn't tracking, who was sending referrals, how many or whatever. And so that same year we went back, and it was funny because I thought all the marketing and all this money I was spending was the reason people were calling to me. And I changed on my intake form for people that would call me, the question we used to say was, what marketing did you see that may have influenced your decision to call? They would always give me something because I was everywhere.
Right.
And we changed it to, who do we need to thank for referring us or sending us your business? And I would learn people that were sending me referrals that I didn't even know were saying, they were influential people that were saying something that influenced them enough to maybe call me. And so we started tracking that. And at the end of the year, we tracked who, who are in your database, who sent you the most referrals. Well, I never knew. And so it was crazy when we got to the end of the year, because it was Dave DeBaca. And Dave DeBaca was my painter that I drank beer with every week. So I'd be over at one of the houses. He'd be painting one of our remodels or one of our flips, and
Right.
I'd be hanging out with him. I never knew, he never told me sending me referrals, but he'd be painting people's house, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna sell it once we get it painted." And they're like, "Yeah, you should call Jake Hinder." And so I was like, "Dude, Dave, like, give him a big hug." You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, appreciate you, bro. Like, you sent me 4 deals that closed last year. I didn't even know. And so, like, that was a big aha. So for Christmas that year, he got OU tickets to an OU game. So you can now invest more in your best people and think of, and do more for those that are out there being a champion for your business. And it was just a fascinating missing piece of where you could optimize your business and really, grow it organically, that I had not previously seen. And so hopefully that whole story helps connect some dots for someone and unlocks them.
Massive. And last thing here, I'll never forget, is me, I think you and Michael Reese, and Michael Reese was now talking, and he said something that to the tune of, like, once you start tracking it, you can call web leads, hundreds and hundreds of times to get a 2 to 4%, basically conversion rate, or you can just take your favorite clients out who send the most referrals to like a Japanese restaurant, have fun, and then live life that way. And
Yep.
that was like a big aha. It's like, man, how much more enjoyable is that? Oh, by the way, the referral that they send converts at 80% instead of 2%. So it's much easier, much less resistance, much less friction, which makes life a lot easier, makes life much more enjoyable in terms of business, right?
Right, 100%, man. We interviewed an agent, and I had never seen this at the time. But now once you have you're open to what are the ways that you could build systems around getting referrals. You start looking for all the ways to do that. And one of the agents in she's what's her name? Julie DeRoches, I think is her name, and she's in where is she? She's in Minneapolis or somewhere up that way, Minnesota. But she had done 305 transactions and 287 of them were referrals. I was like, I've never, ever
Yeah.
heard anything like that. So we interviewed her, right? I'm like, I just want you to
Yep.
unpack that for me because I have never seen anything like that. And it was there was a lot of similarities, client parties and things that were being done. Some of it like that's not really me, but I get it. Why it's valuable. Introduce you to the neighbors in the neighborhood and all this kind of stuff. But she said the biggest thing that she did was a dinner with her clients. She'd take them out to the nicest steakhouse in town, one of the nicest steakhouses in town, and they would have a steak dinner, drink wine, and just be people, and that's what she did with every single client. She literally adopted them kind of as become now we're friends, and she said
Right.
that one thing has been how she gets all of her referrals. And so I was like, wow, like that's a simple one as well. I had to, not sure I want to have dinner with all my clients, right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but there's just what are all the ways that you can build relationships that bear fruit in the future and in this industry. It's the most powerful thing you got is your reputation and people, especially people of influence, right? Like when you do deals like with somebody who has employees or they're the owner of a business or whatever the case may be. When somebody walks in and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about selling my house, and that person says, man, they should call you. That's a very valuable person because they carry a bigger stick when it comes to influence and people listen to them.
Right.
And so be strategic about your clientele and who you do business with, and that and also can play into the referral base you get as well.
Awesome, man. Dude, thank you so much, brother. I know your time's
You got it,
important.
man.
Thank you for sharing with us. And I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks.